And good afternoon. I'm Ann Vandersteel. It is 3 o'clock on a Thursday. Can't believe we're actually rolling towards the end of the week. This week, every week is just flying by because we're just drinking everything from a fire hose. And frankly, some days you need to sit back and you need to connect with people that have been drinking from a fire hose a lot longer than you and just try to make sense of it all. I did an interview a few months ago with this wonderful woman that is going to be on the show this afternoon. And we're going to have a conversation because there's a lot of questions out there. And I think I'm just going to start by asking you guys something. When you watch the news, do you ever just scroll social media? Do you say, like, when you see a video going viral, when you see a scandal exploding overnight, do you ever ask yourself, are you actually watching reality? Or are you watching some script, some sort of kettling mechanism that's just kettling all of us into a narrative that they want us to believe? And I know a lot of you've heard, like, when they're doing something and making a lot of noise over here, look over there. And right now, there's just noise everywhere. And it's kind of like, well, which opposite direction am I supposed to be looking at? Because there's just so much noise. And while it's been amazing that we have so many information, citizen journalists out there that are jumping in and, taking over the reins of doing daily news like I used to do. I love it, but now there's just so much more information and we're trying to figure out, making sense of all this stuff. So we're going to be talking about today a battlefield that most Americans don't even realize exists. It's the artificial intelligence battlefield. It's behavioral modeling. It's the use of deep stake videos. It's the narrative engineering. You probably may or may not remember some of this, but about 7 years ago, the Cambridge Analytica scandal exposed how personal data, your data, could be harvested and weaponized to influence elections. Do you remember Mark Zuckerberg and others sitting in congressional hearings? And I think I coined the phrase, he reminded me of Beaker from The Muppet Show. But anyway, that was actually what we would consider an eternity before AI reached what we now know its current capability. And I don't think we even fully comprehend what its current capability. But now AI can generate video that never happened. And we're starting to get evidence of that. Audio that was never spoken. Roger Stone can speak all to that. Conversations that never occurred. This outrage manufacturing of information at scale that's driving people to respond in a certain way. But there's a deeper question we have to ask. Was this all accidental? Or was this the architecture that was always there? Silicon Valley didn't grow in a vacuum. The internet didn't harvest or didn't begin being as a social media playground. Its roots trace back to the Pentagon, command and control systems. And I've talked with Michael McKibbins in the past, and we're going to bring him back on here, but we're going to talk about the origins of Facebook. Counterinsurgency modeling, predictive data analysis, all this are the same platforms that we actually use to communicate. And they are all capable of tracking behavior, mapping networks, identifying communities, what intelligence agencies called birds of a feather. And if both political factions now possess this AI-driven narrative tool, and if both sides can manipulate the perception that you are thinking you understand, then who is actually steering the ship? Is this the information war controlled chaos? Or is this something far more structured? So this afternoon, we're going to be asking the question, shall we play a game? If you remember that movie War Game, shall we play a game? Well, this particular lovely lady, Kerry Cassidy, is joining me this afternoon. She's the founder and CEO of Project Camelot and Project Camelot TV network. For over 2 decades, she's interviewed military and intelligence whistleblowers from what many describe as above top secret programs. Before launching Project Camelot, she spent nearly 20 years working on Hollywood development, packaging film projects, and writing screenplays. And she's conducted thousands and thousands of interviews. Her YouTube channel amassed over 70 million views before being removed during the COVID censorship era. Who didn't lose channels back then? We all did. She produced the Awake and Aware conferences, and she starred in True TV pilot Shadow Operations. She has been warning about deep state intelligence structures, black projects, and information warfare long before AI became mainstream. And recently, she connected the dots between Cambridge Analytica, AI behavioral engineering, and the Apple TV series The Capture, and says her article exposing those connections was deleted. Kerry Cassidy, welcome back to Steel News. It's great to have you here. I'm thrilled that you're able to join me because I've been dying to have this conversation. General Flynn talks about the 5th generation warfare, and I think all of us are standing in the middle of a battlefield that we don't fully understand.
I agree totally. It's great to be here and so nice to finally connect with you on these topics because
Yeah.
I know that you've done your own research and you're probably up to speed on a lot of what I've sent you some things just as a preamble to what we're going to talk about today, just to make sure we're sort of more or less on the same page. And obviously, you've jumped right in. So I'm not sure where you want to start. So
Well, let's just start generically because I think probably most everybody in my audience knows the movie War Games, and they remember that ever present phrase, shall we play a game? And when we say, shall we play a game, are we talking about politics or are we actually talking about, I don't know, psychological warfare?
uh, both, or politics is psychological warfare at this point.
Yeah.
I think you could easily say that in a sentence. Basically, we're looking at a war game that people don't really, I don't think, understand has been going on for ages on our planet. And we're getting closer and closer to identifying the players, the major players, and turning out to find out that a lot of the humans are backed by ETs, and that even militaries are backed by different warring ETs. And that gets even deeper into the rabbit hole. So this is what we're really looking at. And, I have been researching this now. I call it being on the trail of the Anunnaki for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an investigative journalist who actually has a background in child trafficking and, working in that area of, I'm not sure his exact title and so on and so forth, but Joaquin Hagopian, and he has been on my show once before. A few years ago, he was really backed by Robert David Steele, the CIA officer who supposedly died of COVID a couple of years ago. Whether he died or not, we don't know because he was CIA, and you never know what you're dealing with there. But funny enough, this sort of situation that we're in right now is connecting all of these things. In other words, AI, whether you know it or not, and I've talked a lot about this in the past, my audience will recognize it, that it goes back actually to the Nazca aliens, that find, which is those Nazca aliens, I think that was dated around 2,000 years ago, but it actually goes back before that. It may go back to Atlantis. It may go back to the origination of even this, what we think of as the solar system, the multidimensional world that we're in, or worlds, because it's a war of worlds. And the war of worlds has been going on underground, mainly here on Earth, and in hidden ways where deals were made with certain presidents, with administrations, the military behind the scenes, to allow for abductions, for example, of humans, and also to move the Greys, according to Dan Burish. This is years ago, he talked about this,
Mm-hmm.
that our military had made a deal with the Greys to go south of the border and sort of not bother the people in the United States. That was supposedly a deal. They broke it. Okay. The Greys those particular groups of Greys are known for being rogue, and they break all the deals they've ever made with our government. So when you put this package together, and I might be going all over the place for your listeners, but you can back me up. We can talk one thing at a time.
Sure.
I just want to give the big overview here, because as his research, I was talking about Joaquin, I didn't know about his research, and just found out that he and I have been on the same trail for all these years. And I started before him, I think, but I'm not going to speak for him, so I don't know exactly the details. But he's written several articles. I've now included those articles on my Substack, on an article that I just published. And I just want to say that, what's wonderful is that he went down those roads and reached the same conclusions I did. So we're really, and this all goes back to Epstein and the disclosures that are coming out of Epstein at this point. Now, the
So
on and off.
can I get you to pause 1 second? Can I pause you 1 second? Because this is a lot of information you're releasing right now. And I know you've talked about this. My audience may not have heard a lot of what you just said. So I wanted to pause for a second because President Trump, you just said, put out an executive order that he was going to disclose all the alien information. And he said, oh, I've got to do it to save Obama because he said some things he shouldn't have. Well, to me, that was incongruous only because, Obama was the one who stole, who put him in the position of losing 2020, even though Joe Biden was really the Obama third term. And he knows that Obama was setting him up for the Russia hoax. He knows that Obama has been basically an enemy, just like Hillary Clinton has been an enemy. So to see him say that, was one, very interesting. And I want you to think about that. But secondly, go back to the Greys. I mean, you're talking about aliens that have been on this planet for over 1,000 years. Why won't they just literally take a laser and just, graze the whole planet, get rid of us if we're so problematic and they're, they're, you know what I mean? I mean, why are they allowing us to live?
First of all, they consider this, I mean, it's said in intel circles, this is a farm. They don't want to kill all the animals they feed off of. They feed off what is called loosh, which is our glandular secretions that they consider an aphrodisiac. So they're certainly not going to want to eliminate all of us. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, there is an agenda behind the scenes that also is AI that involves COVID that was turning our bodies, and it was turning the bodies, especially the people that got the jab, but even the ones that didn't, because it jumps, basically into silicon-based as opposed to carbon-based. So this is a war that's quite deep. It has many layers and levels. It depends on which group you're talking about and what their investment is and what their, it's kind of, people have this idea of good aliens or bad aliens. And the idea that we call somebody a good alien means they're good to us. Okay. It's very self-centered. It's not like, it's like saying a lion is good or bad based from a point of view of a gazelle. All right. So this is the thing to kind of keep in mind in a more adult way, instead of just going, oh, good aliens, bad aliens, but you still have to put it in perspective. So for good or evil, we are dealing with various alien races that have come into this planet at various stages of our evolution or re-evolution back to source, however you want to look at it, and what their agendas are. The Greys, the rogue Greys, in particular, if you look at them, they, and this all goes back to, I've been doing this for 20 years. Dan Burish was a witness back really about 20 years ago in the early days. He's a scientist, a microbiologist, I believe. And basically he was tasked with helping the Greys get our DNA, and so that they could sort of get back their emotional body, as it's called, so they could have soft skin and better physicality, because as you can see, they look like they're sucked, all the energy is sucked away from them, right? Mm-hmm. So now they feed on us. Okay, so they come to the planet, they have an agenda, they want our DNA, and they want to instill their DNA in their targets, right? So we have, with the illegal aliens who came towards the border, even in 2016, and were massing at the border like under mind control. And that's exactly what they were. And then this continued this whole time with Trump in office. So, and even when the fake Biden was in office, but that was a Biden show. So what we're talking about that's invasion. All right. You do appreciate that. So we're really looking at a series of invasions of various ET races. It's all written about in the Ashiana Dean downloaded books from the Guardian races, that basically it's Voyager 2, and it's on the front page of my website. If you're interested in getting it, it's like $20 ebook. But she basically delineated throughout history that goes way beyond the Bible, okay, just years earlier and into all different areas, all the different races and the bloodlines that have come into what's us a created hybrid race of beings, humanity. So that's where it all starts. Where you want me to go from here? Yeah, I don't.
Well, okay, so we might jump around a little bit because things you're saying are spawning questions in my mind. But so we found out about the aliens and we negotiated with them. My understanding is back during Eisenhower. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's one of the places. But yes.
Where else were there negotiations with these off-planet creatures?
Every president has been dealing with aliens, or some representative thereof. So Eisenhower, back in the day, it was I forget which president it was. Nixon was totally read in. For example, not all presidents are totally read in. They're given a piece, but. Yes, the meeting with Eisenhower is well known, but before that, and Nixon was I think it was the right-hand man of Eisenhower back in the day, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, which according to a top whistleblower that I've written 2 books on his testimony, Captain Mark Richards, who talks about that Cuban Missile Crisis was not what we think it was. It was actually a battle with gray aliens who were challenging. Basically, they want to take over the planet. They want to use our DNA, and they have done this human hybrid program.
Are they behind the COVID technology, the shots?
Yes, the grays. Okay, and some of the grays are biological, and some are what you call programmable entities that are AI. Run by AI. And some are created by our military at this point, copycatting what other, like the Nordics who use these, they're like worker bees. They report to the highest bidder, according to Mark Richards, and they do what they're told. So, have you seen the X-Men series, for example? So when I talk about the invasion of the grays going, especially south of the border, having free reign down there. I mean, you can go down there. You can see. I've seen videos of the UFOs that actually cover the skies. They don't hide them down there. Their interaction with the people is much more out in the open. When people have contact experiences, it actually gets filmed and talked about in the culture, in Mexico in particular, but south of there as well. So when you're looking at this program that, okay, I'm sure you've heard the word abductee, right?
Correct.
So if I'm talking to an audience that has no idea about anything, then you have to go back to when UFOs were first seen. All they did was talk about the craft. Eventually, they came around at conferences and whatnot and having witnesses that came forward saying they'd been abducted. At first, they were considered crazy, making this up, screen memories, etc. And I think John Mack wrote books about it. He was a Harvard professor who actually pushed the envelope and possibly was killed because of it. So what happens is there is a program, a genetic program that has been very successful. There are many books out there. Many, I think his name is David Jacobs, is another author who has really deeply investigated and interviewed abductees about their experiences, delved deeply into the Greys' agenda, how they actually create a gray human hybrid, how they have to be educated to act human, and various things. I mean, it's a huge story in and of itself, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. I bring it up because it relates directly to the incursion at the border of the young military-age males that are actually gray human hybrids, okay? Which means, according to the X-Men movie, if you ever saw the one called Logan, I think it's called Logan, that particular one
who was the star of that one? Was Hugh?
It was a little girl. I have, her picture on the article that I wrote recently about it. It's on my Substack. She's a wonderful actress, did a beautiful job. It was with the X-Men, that he has the swords coming out of his hands, whatever it's
Yep.
called. So it's centered on her, and she came from Mexico, and she was put into a program above, here in the United States, and tracked, and her skill set was tallied and all of that stuff. She runs away, she gets away from the human handlers after a while, but her skill set is all about having superpowers, right?
Right.
The Greys are known for their intellectual intelligence, but they don't have emotional intelligence. So unfortunately for the Grey human hybrids, they have a lack of empathy, which makes them very dangerous. Okay, so humans have a lot of emotion. We're very water oriented. We have a lot of emotion. Emotional intelligence is really what it is. They don't tell you that, but when they do an IQ test, they're lying to you. They don't understand IQ. There's
Right.
IQ, there's EQ, and there's other types of six senses beyond the six senses. So all of this is being investigated now. A lot of scientists realize they were wrong about all of that. But the bottom line here is that there are various levels of invasions going on right now. The Anunnaki have been here since, I don't even know what the exact, Zachariah Sitchin wrote 12 books about them. Enki and Enlil, Anu is said to be actually the God of the Bible. So when they talk about God and they talk about the God or the gods, Anu wanted humans to worship him. So the thing about the Anunnaki is, yes, they have technology, but they do not have much empathy, again, for humanity. So as far as they deceived humanity. They decided they wanted to basically program us to be their slaves. Some of the story involves mining for gold. It's a well-known story at this point. But it has continued since those days. So they didn't just walk away from Earth. And what they've also done, according to like one of my best really whistleblowers called Bob Dean, Robert O. Dean, you may know his name. He's a very famous whistleblower, worked in the military, was given a binder of information from his superior officer. He worked in Paris in SHAPE headquarters, and basically was told all about the alien intervention on Earth, okay? As a young military officer, when he got out of the military, he decided his conscience bothered him. He decided to go forward. He was part of what you call the old boys network, so they didn't kill him. But eventually, his daughter committed suicide. Now, you could say that was just life, or you could say it was organized. And there's another famous whistleblower around the same time called Clifford Stone. Both of them have passed on at this point, but I interviewed both of them back in the day. And all of this information was coming out then. The UAP hearings are grazing the surface, but we actually got into the nuts and bolts of the reverse engineering of the craft. This has been going on now for 70, 80 years of secrecy here in the United States. All right. So, and basically worldwide, because the United States flies to any place on the planet where a crashed UFO appears, and they pay the government to shut up, and they take it away, the technology. Right. So that's a pattern that's been going on for all these years. We're talking going back to the 1930s, maybe even before.
Why did they feel it was so important to keep it from people? Because I mean, I don't think I know anybody who hasn't seen something in the sky that they couldn't identify. And I clearly saw one of those flying white Tic Tac looking things. My whole family, there were 6 of us in the car, but it doesn't keep me. I'm not lying awake at night concerned about it, because I figured, you know what, if they're here, they've been here. They have better technology than we do, or at least I do. And there's nothing I can do about it. So,
well, think about the Epstein and the whole Baal worship. This all comes from the Anunnaki. This comes from aliens. In other words, this is not a human failing that suddenly one part of humanity is feeding off of, killing and murdering the other half. Okay. This
Right.
is actually goes back to the aliens that brought this technology, this way of approaching us, humanity. And they
Okay.
basically put more reptilian, they're reptilian humanoid hybrids, the Anunnaki. Okay. So they're carved into the walls of Egypt, and I lead tours there every year.
Right.
Iraq, Iran, Syria, Turkey, they're all over the place. So if you want to know what they look like, just look at those temple walls. The thing is, they basically ruled us when they first arrived on our planet. They took over, they took control, and they're in, the story goes that they're in the Sumerian tablets is that there's two brothers, Enki and Enlil, and Enki, my information is that he was sort of the good guy. He seduced the women. That's the story. But the reality is he was a geneticist. He basically put his DNA into the tribes of humans that were down in Africa and allowed them more freedoms, whereas the ones in the Middle East were handled by Enlil, who was much more sort of vicious and controlling, and he did not want to see humanity progress. Because what happened when they first landed here and encountered us, and they started genetically engineering us, we started our sort of trajectory of mutations and everything started going beyond them very quickly. They could see, looking in the future, which they have the technology, that we were going to challenge
That's the
them.
looking glass technology.
It's like that. I mean, looking glass is like a bucket item at this point. It's not, it's just one way of talking about AI. All right. That technology was talked about first by Dan Burish. Okay. Another whistleblower on the subject is Bill Brockbrader. He was not the original whistleblower on it, but he did get involved as a techie in the program and saw it operational, from what I understand. But years before that, Dan Burish was breaking that story. And it's all on my website. The interviews are both there. So what I'm saying is I'm building up to tell you that the reason for the secrecy is it's kind of obvious. They want to eat us. They want to steal our children. They want to genetically re-engineer us. All of that is ongoing with this race of beings, and they want to control us. In fact, 3-Eye Atlas has all indications that it's run by the Anunnaki. And I did a whole series of interviews on that. So
just so I'm clear, what you're saying is, because we are seeing
humans knew they were prey. Okay, it's very important.
Our government is running programs that are, trafficking children, and hundreds of thousands of children are missing and disappearing.
They're serving the aliens. They're serving the alien agenda.
They're going underground. Is it the children? Because the other thing we know is that these children are being stored underground. Is that because aliens are there that are eating the children? Is this whole adrenochrome then? Is that a fake story?
Adrenochrome that they take from their, from their glands when they torture them. A certain amount of adrenaline, comes to the surface. In horrible ways, they torture the children. They then take the solutions and they put it into a cosmetic. And this is how they seduce members of Hollywood, because once you start using it, if you stop, you age drastically in like 24 to 48 hours. Okay.
Well, we saw Ellen DeGeneres sort of do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're not the only ones. I mean, there are a lot, and it becomes an addiction. Okay. I talk about it in several articles also because what it is, and the yogis know this story and they don't talk. Okay. So secrecy pervades our planet in every aspect. So one of the things about adrenochrome, about what is in essence Kundalini energy, is called in the East. In the West, it's called orgone. Okay. But what we have that makes our skin soft and stay young looking for a long time. And mostly kids and teenagers have it in spades. After that, it starts to diminish in a human, unless you start meditating and activate all your chakras, and then you have Kundalini experiences and activation, and it stays with you your whole life. I did that when I was in my early 20s. So I have had that the benefits of having done that, but most humans won't take the time to do it. Okay. So they are dependent on fake drugs and everything under the sun. Nothing works but this feeding on children, the adrenochrome. Okay. And the blood sacrifice. That's why they do it. So this is the biggest secret on our planet that's coming out now because of the Epstein files.
And Trump, who had said, you know, why are you interested in the Epstein files? You're panicking, it's a hoax, all the stuff. He's now releasing alien information. He's disclosing it. Who is making him do this? Is this his own choice, or is he being told now is the time?
Well, you remember the plan. You know, I think that the plan had to be, you know, had to go for many years. It had to involve certain agendas. There's information that I have that they're in touch with a group from Inner Earth, for example, that are more developed than the surface humans. They've also been probably in touch with certain alien beings that have guided them along these roads. So Trump is, you know, when he said, oh, there's nothing to see here, it's just all, you know, fake or distraction, he was trying to provoke the Democrats at the time who wanted it released. So he does these things. He says things that he doesn't even believe, but he does it on purpose to provoke the reaction. And then he comes out and discloses. So at this point, he has, you know, thrown down the gauntlet. He said he's going to release some information. I'm sure he will. It will not go to the degree I am talking to you now. Okay. That will be the trouble. Okay. Because I am all about protecting the children. That parents who don't understand what's really going on in our society do not understand that this is an epidemic now. This is a world war. All right. For our children, and for human trafficking is the number one most paying crime out there. Okay. So you've got guns and drugs. Human trafficking is far surpassing that. So the evidence is everywhere, and yet very few people want to go there and reveal it.
Why is that?
Well, in part because they haven't done what I've done. So I know this intimately because I went into the meditation and I just came in that way. Okay. I guess that I prepared myself, and I decided I wasn't even going to have a yogi teach me because I don't trust them either. They're also feeding on their cellos energy wise. So I basically decided that I needed to reach enlightenment the way you do that in the East. I was oriented towards Eastern philosophy as a young child. And I basically set aside time. And when I was in my late teens, early 20s, started meditating every day, and eventually was very successful, having multiple what they call samadhi experiences and activating all my chakras. And it's been probably the best thing I ever did in my entire life. But it's not easy. Okay. It does change you physically. It's hard. You know, it's very hard work, really. And it's spiritual. You have to be very, you know, sort of focused. So your average person is not going to do it. Okay. There's substitutes that people use and have always used. They take drugs, for example, to make them feel like Kundalini makes you feel. Right. I mean, you know, so there's a whole backstory as to the secrecy. Even the yogis don't reveal this information. It's all in a top level Illuminati, partly alien run, you know, sort of band of secrecy over our entire planet. The one thing you should be very happy about is, regardless of what Trump says about it, people like me and other people that are knowledgeable, and you're certainly knowledgeable to a point, are disclosing. We're disclosing every day. And I've been doing it for 20 years. I've been talking about the Anunnaki and their role and their control over humanity for 20 years.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying here is, it just happens that the Epstein files, we're going to bring all that out, and that's what's happening. And so the perpetrators, the people that are benefiting from, you know, it's only a temporary high, but it's a certain kind of high that from killing, it's blood sacrifice, and it goes back to the days of what you call the worship of Baal, Baal, in the Middle East. And it's also in every walk of life. Every culture has participates in this sort of thing.
So, Kerry, are all governments around the world engaging with the various aliens that are on or under the planet, above the wherever they are? Are they all engaging at some level, negotiating and providing what it is they're asking for? I mean, why would we give up our children unless, of course, they promise to blow us away, or what? I mean, what is the quid pro that we're being, basically bribed to or forced to give up our children?
Well, I mean, humanity. Okay, why does humanity have fear? They're always afraid. We're always afraid. All the stories in the Bible about sacrificing your children and all that, it all goes back to that. Excuse me. It goes back to geishas in Japan. I've talked to this person from Japan. She had no idea her government was involved in something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been involved in their society since day one. That involves geishas, okay, who were basically stolen, trained to be, pleasure objects to men, and, this whole cycle. In the Middle East, they've been marrying, and I think even in Japan, they've been marrying, girls under the age of 14, going back to, super young, 8, 9, 10, that kind of thing. This is common. It's been part of their culture. It's understanding that this is coming from an off-planet race that has been controlling. Okay, for example, the Anunnaki set up the kingships. What they did is they genetically mutated the humans that they chose, gave them advanced Anunnaki DNA as well as the reptilian DNA, which made them much more. Reptilians are hierarchical by nature. They punish, their underlings, so to speak, to get them to obey. It's a total totalitarian society. It's okay. And so they set up the kings and queens in Egypt, for example, to take control of the humans. Once they kind of got bored of running our planet, they turned it over to these hybrids that are humans that have extra amounts of reptilian DNA. The Bushes were tested a long time ago, and it is said that their DNA would never be shown to the public because of how much reptilian DNA they have.
Whoa.
So it's the blue bloods, it's the so-called royalty, the king's crown. That's a subliminal message to tell you, to make you think that they are enlightened beings, that crown chakra is glowing and gold and the whole thing. A crown, a physical crown, is just mirroring that spiritual advancement. But it's a lie. The kings and queens were anything but enlightened, but they wore the crown, and then people bowed down to them. And subjugation of humans by humans has also been going on our planet forever. But it's been inspired, again, by the kingships from the reptilian DNA, stimulating an aggressive, warlike, domineering, titans of industry, princes and kings and queens, all of this kind of DNA that makes them more aggressive, want to fight to the top, want to fight to the death, and so on and so forth, and dominate other humanity. So they want power over others. That's the main thing.
So by Trump disclosing
it's a structure that is set in every. It's in the Vatican. The Vatican is run by the reptilians. I mean, this is so pervasive. They're part of it.
Is it true that Epstein lived in the Vatican at some point?
I don't know about that detail, but he might as well have. I mean, this is the Mossad is wrapped up in, all the intelligence agencies are wrapped up in this. It's, if you want to look at it, basically it's a trade for money, but it's also, we're creating colonies now off planet. We're making deals with some of the alien races. There's a television series called
Elon Musk making deals with some of these races, because he's the one, he's bent on going to Mars.
I mean, he's a pawn in a game who has been given a certain amount of access. Yes, but he knows what I'm talking about.
What about
A lot
Bezos,
of
Jeff
these
Bezos?
people, and they lie about it. Yes, all the top titans of the high tech, also bringing in the AI to control humanity, again, is part of the agenda.
So now that you've gone back to AI here briefly, we now know AI is very sophisticated. Somebody could be creating an AI video of you and I talking right now and change the entire conversation to needlepoint,
Yes,
and no one would know the difference. I've
right.
had somebody AI me in Central America before talking, and they put my voice and my face and my lips all synchronized to perfect Spanish in my voice. And I couldn't tell the difference. I said, that's unbelievable. That being said, how do we know at this point now? Because I've always said, I think we all can agree, government has had the technology long before they release it, 20, 30, 40, 50 years,
Right.
whatever it is. How do
Mhm.
we know that UFOs and all this stuff isn't AI that has been just fabricated and the AI has gotten better and better and better over the last 50 years? How do we know that this is really real, that we're not living in just another psyop right now?
Well, you could say life is a psyop if you want to go that far. But
That's true.
what's happening here is there are real craft, and they are really reverse engineered. I mean, this is the hard knocks of the nuts and bolts. And that the craft also often has consciousness. So built into the shell around the craft is that can go, the craft all go interdimensional. They leave this dimension, which is 3D going into 4D, more 4D than it ever was before, and into other dimensions. And the dimensions are right next to each other. So a lot of this is very advanced science. If you don't understand science and you haven't studied it, then you don't know what I'm talking about. When they talk about the quantum, they're talking about everything. They're basically talking about the mind of God, if you will, and understanding that there is an agenda for a growing planet that is seeded with a certain race of beings and then genetically manipulated to upgrade them in some cases, and in some cases to downgrade them. In other words, this is a farm. We are all being upgraded and downgraded. Okay. It's a
So,
war. The good guys are upgrading us. The bad guys are downgrading us and stealing us. So
okay, you said God. Is God overseeing all of this?
yeah,
Aliens, everything?
absolutely. Yeah, everything. So it's
Interesting.
not, a lot of people like to paint this idea that here's God over here and devil over here, and they're at war together over humanity. But the reality is that Source, God, the real creator, is actually over AI. It's in control of everything. So you need to have this understanding of a more expansive understanding of what is God, what is consciousness, and the idea that everything has consciousness. They have found rocks have consciousness, planets have consciousness. Consciousness is the name of the game in the multiverse. Okay. So there is basically virtually nothing that doesn't have consciousness. Okay. Even when you have, let's say, a mechanical object, the ghost in the machine, that whole idea.
Right.
This is real. And we have our consciousness can actually influence all of these things around us. You can either clash with it, in which you have headlights that go on and off all the time unless you make peace with your car, the consciousness in the engine of your car. I mean,
Right.
your computer, if it breaks down all the time, you're at war with your computer. It doesn't
Yeah.
like the way you're treating it. It doesn't like the way it's trying to wake you up and say, hello, I am conscious. The thing is, just like cats and dogs and everything under the sun, there's nothing that isn't conscious because it's all God, if you want to look at it like that. And see, the key thing here is the Illuminati know this. This is not something I just made up yesterday. This is in all the occult literature. It's in all the spirituality everywhere. You can come across it very easily. But the Illuminati in particular are dark magicians that manipulate reality along these lines because they understand the principles that most people don't. that most people are blind to. They kick their car, they, do this and that. In reality, they think it doesn't do anything. It's everything you say, everything you do, everything you've ever said or done in your reincarnations as well. I mean, I know I'm going deep here, but
I know, well, you are going deep, but I want to bring it back to concepts that my audience is, bring up Illuminati, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, the RIIA, the Committee of 300. I mean, these are all
most of
organizations.
them are read in. They either got read in by blackmail, honeypots such as Epstein is running, okay, whether they liked it or not, or they're kicked out or killed if they don't participate. It's not a free world, okay, in essence. That's where is Trump guilty or innocent? I'm writing articles about that every day.
Is he blackmailed?
Exactly. What is his degree of involvement, or did the white hats basically with a plan that started, well, I thought it started around the death of John F. Kennedy. It definitely is inspired by the death or the assassination on John F. Kennedy. But the reality is, and that's why 107 is JFK Jr., and I get into all of that, because he would not work with Trump if Trump really was, in my view, a pedophile. So that means they had to fake he was one of them. He had to infiltrate the dark, starting with his mentors like Roy Cohn and Les Wexner and so on, and Epstein. So he had to align himself. And you've seen Trump, at least in action, enough to know that he is mercurial. He is able to make friends with anyone under any circumstances. The biggest enemy, like the government, the leader of North Korea, he has the guy eating out of his hand. Okay, this is his personality. He was basically created to do this job. I don't know at what point, whether he was, exorcised, had an exorcism because he was part of it when he was young, or if he just was reached early enough and recruited early enough by the white hats. That did go on before Kennedy. There's evidence of that knew that our world had been taken over by this insane satanic cabal and wanted to take it back and knew they needed a plan that was airtight. You understand? So it's perfectly possible that Trump has been groomed by the best in the true, what do you call it? The Godfather, the whole, becoming a gangster, becoming
made man.
Yeah. And all the doubles. You understand how many doubles there are of Trump? We see them all the time now. Okay. In fact, we don't see the real Trump very often, who is actually 6'3". You can see him standing next to anyone. And if he's shorter than that person, he's not Trump. Okay. You understand?
Right.
So Biden, the same thing. According to 107,
oh, there were so many Bidens. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and sometimes they're doubles. Sometimes they just wear masks. 107 is wearing a mask every day of his fucking life. Okay. It was all depicted in Tom Cruise movies. It's the real thing. Sean David Morton even tried it on his family. They didn't recognize him. It's a real thing. Okay. These masks look incredibly real. So you can go out into society and deceive people any day of the week. And the CIA uses this technique now, and it's even on the internet. You can learn how to do it. I mean, this is what we live in. This is the world where we have evolved to at this point. So being in denial is not helping anyone.
Okay. So I want to take this now back into our government. We have a massive agency bureaucracy. Our Defense Department lives to exploit the American taxpayer to fund their sick predilections. And according to what you've said, our military is involved in this, and they've made deals. So taking this back to Silicon Valley, you have a movie, I just now blanked out on the name of it, about the origins of Silicon Valley. It's on your website. I just went blank.
The Matrix? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a movie on the origins of Silicon Valley. It takes you back to the beginning when it was all farmland. And anyway, it's on your website. I'm sorry, I just went blank on the name of it.
Okay.
I can pull it up. But anyhow, Silicon Valley's roots also trace back to DARPA, military R&D. So does that mean that big tech was always structurally linked to not only the intelligence agencies, but also to the intelligent life that has off-planet life that's here now? I mean, were they part of the
Yes.
genesis creation of that
So
entire
there's a
apparatus
book.
that we know?
It's called The Day
Big
After
tech.
Roswell by Colonel Corso. All right.
Okay.
He says literally, it's kind of an amazing book in the sense that a lot of people have forgotten it now, but he actually said back in the years when they published it, that he was tasked with getting the alien technology and seeding it into our commercial sector. That's what his job was. And he
And when was
talks
this?
about
What year was this?
I'm sorry?
What year was this?
I think it was during the 60s, but it
Okay.
was sometime during, in the past.
Okay.
And his name is Colonel Corso, a very famous general or colonel, and basically given this job to work under presidents. I mean, this stuff is written about in detail. He talks about how we got the transistor. He talks about how we got, that camouflage, to that technology. There's all the technologies, computers. I mean, this all has come from, a lot of it from crash retrievals and from alien races we've actually done deals with. I mean, our NASA not only became run by the Nazis and paperclip, Werner von Braun in particular,
Right.
but that at the same time, we already were developing our own technology because Tesla, who arguably even says he probably was from another planet. Now they're saying it was written that he was from Venus. I think that might be in the Epstein files. I don't know. But the reality is, do you understand? So you have to rewrite history in your mind to understand how this really all got generated. Now, this is this version of, before that, there were different societies that where humans again were advancing, and then they had a cataclysm of that's man-made cataclysms, by the way, with the help of aliens. Even the flood was a man-made cataclysm. So you're talking about manipulation of our world on purpose, collusion of the humans working for the aliens, okay, with agendas, going back to the days of Atlantis that also had an engineered crash, of the island and all of that fell into the sea. It all goes back to all of that. Paperclip, are you asking me a question?
Yeah, no, I just was trying to tie in the development of our intelligence communities. And so, for instance, and here's where there's something that just puts a wrinkle in some of this. Michael McKibben, who's a brilliant researcher, Ames Media, American Intelligence Media. He has a group of folks that are big time intelligence diggers, and he's closed a lot of loops for me and questions I had. He found things or knew of things, that go way back. One of the things that's really interesting about him, and he has a book out right now on journalists. I wonder where I put it. I think it's in my room. Anyhow, he was behind the original social media, sort of foundational software. And it was very sophisticated software at the time. And so he was recommended to contact an IP attorney in the Clinton administration so he could patent the technology. Well, that IP attorney in the mid-90s took his technology and gave it to DARPA. And then, LifeLog and Facebook and all that happened. And he actually has, since 2014, a Miller Act notice. I think it's like 24 or $26 trillion that has been sitting since 2014 on the administration's desk, the president's desk in various administrations. And it's really residuals or royalties, if you will, for the use of his technology in LinkedIn, X, Twitter, Facebook, Getter, whatever the social media platform is.
But with all due respect, he came later. So the thing is
Right.
that all of this was The original AI software is Promise software. This is where the Israelis put a backdoor into the technology. It was supposed to be profiling legal, started with law firms, went into law enforcement, and it basically profiling every person, every node, if you will, and putting it into this database that was, growing and gigantic. And
Right.
then the Israelis got involved. Michael Reconasciuto got involved. There's some very good books out there. One is called The Last Circle, and it's by Sherry Seymour. I read it years ago. So I investigated this way back when. Even Joaquin Hagopian has investigated this also, the same trail. It's called the Trail of the Octopus. Danny Casolaro was killed in his bathtub, a journalist who was on this trail and figuring all of it out, and who was running it, and who was in control of the planet, and who was tracking who. And it was a tracking and tracing software that began, and it was the rudimentary elements of the surveillance that we have today. So it was the original AI, developing AI. A lot of, keep in mind that what goes on with some of this stuff is even the intelligence agencies do this. They will seed certain groups with the similar technology. And then they will let them develop it and think they originated it, right? And then they watch them as they grow and as they begin to compete and all of that. It's a technique. It's been done by the deep state forever. All right. So when somebody thinks they're the originator, I can bet you, I'll bet you $1 million that there's some other person that has been doing and seeded the same information. You could go back to Tesla. That would be going back to the 1800s as well.
Okay.
In other words, he tapped into all of it. He said we should be communicating with planets. He knew they had consciousness. He said he built a phone to call planets with. I mean, seriously. This stuff, he understood that electricity comes out of the earth, that all you have to do is stick a stick or whatever into the ground and you get electricity. The databases they're building and saying, oh, you need to spend so much billions of dollars to run them with electricity.
Well, some people's electric bills have quadrupled. So are you saying
they're lying? Don't you see?
They are?
Yes, because if they use the Tesla version of electricity that is not all centralized and controlled, it wouldn't cost anything because it's already free on the earth. It's part of this machine we call the earth. So
wow.
And look, Trump knows this. His uncle worked with Tesla and was involved in partially, I guess, stealing his papers, which they still have under wraps. I went to Wardenclyffe. We just went there, as part of this awakening conference that I did with people back in, I think it was October or something. Can't remember the month. Anyway, and we filmed this site that was run by Tesla, in which he had built this thing called the Wardenclyffe Tower in Long Island. Look it up. It had an aquifer underneath that I tapped into. I didn't know anything about it at the time, but as a psychic intuitive, I knew there was water down there. Turned out I was right. It basically sucks the energy up through, in a sense, it's the earth orgone, if you want to think about it that way.
Interesting.
So in other words, energy, the Illuminati, they have a whole list of programming. One of those things is to tell you that everything is scarce. They can't sell a goddamn thing if they don't tell you it's scarce. And then they price it accordingly. So when they tell you that you can't, even silver right now, they're trying to convince people is scarce. It's not true. It exists on other planets, if not just ours. We're farming. We're basically out in the solar system, farming all kinds of metals, etc.
Today I worked from 10 a.m. yesterday.
Hang on one second. I've got a small problem going here. Hold.
I don't know if you can hear me or what's going on there, but do you, because I don't think we should make people wait like this because there are live watcher, people watching live. You're muted right now, so I don't know if you can hear me.
No, that's okay. I did have to mute myself for a second because. Okay. Thank you, Maureen. Sorry. I had something else that popped in my computer. So I just got to figure out. Hang on one second. I'm so sorry. Just bear with me one second. This is like a live snafu here. Let's see if I can do this and do that. Okay. All right. I'm back. Sorry about that. I had a live Zoom that popped in and I didn't realize what time it is. And my business partner is taking it. So right now, so I apologize. I'm like, where are these people coming from? They're talking on my camera. So anyhow, all right. So
we can wrap this up if you like, if you need to go.
That's all right. No, because I kind of want to know, where is this going to go, Kerry? Because if this has been going on for thousands of years and you go back and like you said, you look at the Inca, you look at the Egyptians, there's signs all over the planet that structures were built that were obviously identical to structures on the far side of the planet. We didn't have a way to get from point A to point B to Z and everywhere else. Where is this going to go? Because, from this point, the world is waking up to adrenochrome. They're waking up to child trafficking. They're waking up to our government doesn't love us. They don't care about us. They're trying to kill us. And COVID was a real wake up call and all of that. And now Trump is declassifying this. We have AI out there, which is basically telling us we don't know who to believe. We recognize we have a uniparty right now, and DC doesn't care about us at all. They're a profiting office, and they have been profiting office in many, many ways. So, this is like a bleak future from where I'm sitting, even though some of the technology is extraordinary and they're talking about extending your life and all this stuff. But then there's the whole transhumanism element. And you're talking about how they are sort of cherry picking us in that sort of same vein. And for those of us that are Christians, like the last thing I want is I don't want to live forever because I believe I will be in eternity with my Savior. So at some point, I know I'm supposed to pass away. This body leaves, right? So where is this all going to go? I mean, what is your vision for the future? What are you hearing? What are you being told?
Well, I think it's a wonderful thing because the more awake humanity becomes, the less crime against humanity that will occur because people will be awake. Right now,
Right.
They're just they're prey, as I call it. It's very obvious. Their children are prey. How long do you want that to continue? It's been going on for eons. I would like to see humanity wake up and take strides to protect their children, to make them aware of when they've got a person who is potentially going to feed on them, going to turn into a vampire, and so on. In other words, this is what we're dealing with. So we've been dealing with it, but we've been asleep, in essence, they call it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So becoming more awake, it can be painful, but it's much more painful when you look back and see how stupid you were, how dumbed down, and how you were being deceived, because that's
if those of us that don't
want
to
grow under those circumstances. So sure. I think the path of growth of humanity, the reason it's happening is because we're ready to move on. We're ready to expand, to, ascend on a certain level, if you want to call it that, even though there's a lot of fallacy in that. But nonetheless, in other words, this is an opportunity for us to grow and expand and become closer to God. You want to be close to God, you have to become more like God. We are already close to God in a sense. That's not going to change. What you need to do is obviously, in a sense, be God-like. So this is all on that path. I mean, to me, it just makes logical sense. It's just very obvious. So along those lines, will Trump, let's say in July, when he's supposed to come out and actually reveal something, is he going to be dumbed down? Is he going to, just do something very superficial and say, yes, there are reverse engineered UFOs and our military has got that technology. Thank you very much. Good night. I mean, look, I don't know what he's going to do. And I don't know what the White Hats are going to do. For this longest time, 107, arguably one of the heads of the White Hats, has tried to shut me up. He has literally tried to obstruct me time and time again, telling my colleagues not to listen to me, not to have me as guest on their shows, and so on. So I have proof of this, so I'm not just talking off the top of my head.
No,
Because I have friends in all kinds of places. All I can tell you is that they've made a turnaround. They've realized that Trump is got, in order to win the midterms, if you will, might be his big motivating factor for releasing anything about the UFO alien thing. Or it could have been part of their agenda and pushed to this point. They didn't want to reveal it too early. So they waited, and they kept people like me and Simon Parks and a few of us that really know the story quiet, or tried to. It didn't work with me, but some people were, kept silent. So where we're headed is a new Earth. I mean, even Colonel Corso, he said it's a new world if you can take it. It's, we are not locked into this reality. There are multiple dimensions. There is time travel is real. Everything under the sun that you might have been able to imagine could probably be created. Will we destroy ourselves in the sort of process? Hopefully not. Hopefully wiser minds and hearts will prevail. It technically, if you really want to look at it, the seedings of various beings to planets is a program. Even that is managed. We have been a managed, growing community. We call it humanity. We are hybrids. There are plans for us. Okay, there are plans for us. According to the Wingmakers, James, who I got to know, he's still out there writing books, and I'm in touch with him. And he basically said in the Wingmakers that the Wingmakers said they were going to try to merge humanity with 7 other races of beings. That was the plan.
Are these other races of beings merging with other races of beings, or are we just the ones that are the unlucky ones that constantly get picked on?
No, this hybridization. I mean, think about, plants in a garden. They do hybridization to make the plant stronger, to give it new abilities, that kind of thing. So It can be a very positive path. What they're going to do with all the other planets, the fact that they're probably doing the same thing with a lot of them, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. I just know the process. I know it's written about, it's out there in the occult literature if you pay attention. I've been researching this my whole life, so, I'm pretty well read on all of these kinds of things. But, in other words, take it or leave it. If you want to stay stupid, go ahead. It probably won't let you, because another thing that's happening that's facilitating this sort of movement that we're part of, which is to tell the truth about who we really are, and about our reality, and about everything that we're experiencing, is actually being influenced from off planet, from what Paul Laviolette, this astrophysicist, called a superwave of energy, that we're merging with the Sagittarian galaxy or whatever. And that in that merging, we're becoming more enlightened, if you will.
So
this is a trajectory.
Okay. And earlier in the conversation, I asked you about God. Is he overseeing all this? And you said yes. So when I think about it biblically, based on what you've just said recently with respect to, all the aliens, the Bible doesn't actually directly address any sort of ET life. It mentions aliens like strangers or foreigners, and that's in Exodus. But
it mentions the Nephilim and the Anunnaki.
Okay.
The
then the other point I wanted
Nephilim are the Anunnaki.
Right. Okay. But it doesn't reference it as Anunnaki. It references as Nephilim. So you're saying Nephilim is Anunnaki.
Yes.
Okay. Because I don't believe Anunnaki is in the Bible.
Humanoid hybrid.
I could be wrong. Pardon?
Sorry. They're reptilian humanoid hybrids. The story about the Anunnaki is that they went rogue from the Pleiades. The original, they are Pleiadian. They're a rogue group of Pleiadians that went and took over Nibiru, then got invaded by Dracos and reptilians and made into a hybrid race. The The thing is that Dracos and reptilians are marauding species that travel around the galaxies looking for food, if you will, looking for places they can conquer, take control over. And this is that's what their species does. Arguably, by the way, run by AI is what the remote viewers are now saying. Okay. So Courtney Brown's remote viewers, he has a group of very talented remote group viewers that, I participate in. I've interviewed him dozens of times. I've interviewed some of his early remote viewers who are now part of their own future forecasting group. People like Daz Smith and what's his name? God, I forget his name. Anyway, in other words, the remote viewing and remote viewers and psychics have had windows into these worlds that we're talking about. There's zillions of books and, hundreds of millions of people talking about what I'm talking about. It's it's just understanding reality. It's not that different, right, in a sense, when you actually look closely.
So my concern with this, with what you're suggesting is happening or stating is happening based on, all of the research. When I reference the Bible, talking about creating an alien human hybrid race, or, hybridizing us with a bunch of other different aliens, whatever it is, the Bible forbids that. I mean, that's Leviticus. They don't want to see animals, being mixed together and creating new breeds.
Okay, but
that is forbidden in the Bible.
Do you know who wrote the Bible? Do you really think it was Jesus? I mean, I don't need to get personal here, but I'm sorry to say that you must know about the Council of Nicaea that took over the Bible, the various books of the Bible, and basically put it all together. There were, according to Ashana Dean and the Guardian races, there were 3 Jesuses, if you want to call them that. And one was I think 6th dimensional, 9th dimensional, and 12th dimensional. So we're talking about
Son of Man?
History. Yes. So we're talking about history, okay, that has been rewritten by an Illuminati called the Council of Nicaea. There's proof of that. You can go back and investigate that, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I know there's various forms
so the
of
Bible,
yes.
It turns out that the Bible is full of lies. Some of the stuff is true and some of it is absolutely false. And one of the intentions behind the way they changed the Bible was to make sure that humanity looked for a savior outside themselves, looked for a power outside themselves, so they would sublimate themselves and pray on their knees and kiss the ground and all that kind of nonsense. In other words, all those rituals are reptilian rituals of subservience. Okay. So they wanted to keep humanity. These are programming devices. They wanted to program humanity to be subservient to whatever alien group they brought in here. This now, why would a God do that? Let's get a little philosophical here on that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why would a God do that?
Yeah. Why would
that's what I'm sitting here pondering.
I know. So what I'm saying is there's a reason for this. Okay. The way it's looked at in a more esoteric way, spiritual way, is that God only gives you what you can handle at any given time. There's a saying like that. Okay. In some philosophies.
Right.
And so the idea here is that humanity has been growing up, has been raising their frequency, and has at this time in their trajectory shown, their light to these other outer worlds who are now coming here to influence us, to challenge us, to actually get the way the dark works. The dark works in service to the light. The dark is there to make the light stronger, because you have to battle and you have to get stronger to survive the darkness. Get it? So it's you could call it a negative stimulus that happens that's a yin yang dynamic that goes on in this kind of level at 3D going into 4D. So the aliens are here to challenge us, to recognize our own abilities, our superpowers. we have not even tapped into our superpowers, hardly at all on this planet. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to actually know that we have in our abilities amazing powers. They're just dormant. It's the same thing with activating parts of our brain. What they call junk DNA is not junk. If you ever saw the movie Lucy, you would realize it's never been junk, okay? They wanted to convince you, to keep you dumb, to keep you down.
Mm-hmm.
This whole game was to teach you of what you're capable, that you can surmount evil in every circumstance, that it's like a training wheel, if you will. It's basically bringing humanity to a higher level. It's getting the light to recognize the light in itself, which is God. Light is God. So the more you learn, the more light you reflect out and generate. And the more others learn and they do the same thing. It's like light bulbs turning on all over the planet. Can visualize it like that. This is what's happening here.
So
and yes, negative things have a purpose.
what is the timeline for what would you consider to be full enlightenment for planet Earth?
It's ongoing. Enlightenment is a journey, not a destination. So even what somebody would call, oh, there's a yogi, they're enlightened. They're not, okay? They're just traveling on a trail. They're on this moving target. In essence, until you're God itself, you're not fully enlightened, okay? So you've got a ways to go. Everyone does. I mean, the whole planet does. Every yogi out
I don't
there
deny any of that.
knows.
I'm furthest from being the sharpest tool in the shed, Kerry. That's for sure. I'm always trying to learn.
That's not true. You wouldn't be talking to me if you weren't pretty aware.
Well, I'm trying to become more enlightened. That's for sure. It's just,
that's the name of the game.
For me, that is the name of the game. I guess it's going to be very interesting. I know there's a lot of books of the Bible that were never fully published. I think there's 66 or 67 other books. Is that right? My brain with numbers is terrible. So if I'm not getting the number right, don't shoot me. I just don't remember numbers very well. But there's a lot of other books in my.
I forget the name of it, but there's a specific book that everybody refers to, and lots of people have read. I think I've read parts of it. It's all about the Watchers, and it's the one book they kept out of the Bible, but people are reading it now and realizing that it was talking all about aliens. Okay, so for what it's worth.
Oh, okay, there you go. See, I'd have to ask Maureen, my business partner. She's actually reading all those books, and so I'll have to ask her about that, because that gets to something that makes a little more sense, because the Bible I know doesn't support the theory of other creatures out there, which is interesting.
Well,
and I think that's.
I mean, look, you might not like hearing this, but religion has been one of the main ways they programmed and dumbed down humanity.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. Kerry, you and I are on the same page. Okay. Yeah, same page. I think organized religion is frankly the root of all evil, because that is the place where people just sort of give it over to the pastor and say, okay, priest, pastor, whatever. You got this. I've repented. I'm going to go commit another crime, and then I'm going to repent. And it's just, it's an excuse for not living your best life when you go to work. And I'm not trying to put down people that go to church. I'm just saying, yeah. Yes. So I think that people need to, my relationship with God is mine. It's personal. It's my own spiritual. And, I tell people all the time, when I'm doing my walk with my dog every morning, that's my time. The first 30 minutes is when I'm talking to God, and I'm sort of putting out to the universe what I want, who I'm praying for, what I'm concerned about, looking for guidance. And it's me and my dog, which is God spelled backwards. And that's my church. I don't go to an organized church on Sundays, and I've gone to church on Sundays with friends and family, and I don't look down on people or cross-eyed or anything. Everybody has to walk their own path. But I have seen a lot of these mega churches. I think we all can talk about Jim and Tammy Faye Baker and Joel Osteen and a whole bunch of others that have taken people for a ride, mostly for this. And that they didn't get the spiritual awakening they were looking for. And you got it. That's your own personal journey, right? Everybody's on their own journey on everything in life. You are on this journey and you're way out in front of everybody else, but that's your journey.
If you
and
like,
you share your journey with others.
And the kingdom of heaven is within. That's what he supposedly said.
Yeah. I would believe that. And, when we're not here anymore, I hope that I'm sitting with my mother and father and a few of my other friends. And, I get to meet Jesus when I get there, or whoever, that's right now I'm here and this is what we're talking about. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. I wanted to, I want to talk a little bit more on planet about AI at some point in the future, because I really do want to break down. Yeah, it's just stick to the on planet stuff. I want to break down, AI. I want to talk about just sort of the Maxwell connection to all of our intelligence databases and stuff like that. I kind of want to break that down because it's happening on the here and now right now. And I think we're going to, I don't think we've even scratched the surface with this Epstein stuff. So I'm glad, that we stood up and we fought back and said, no, release the damn files. And we still have still more to go, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, understanding AI is part of it. It's also, a stimulus for understanding us. I have a scientist called Dr. John Scott Perez, who I've had on my show several times. He says that plants have AI DNA. It can be manipulated in a computer. So
really?
Yes. And so, you can have him as a guest. He's very intelligent, has all degrees all over the place. He's brilliant. And he basically has done that very thing. He's manipulated plant DNA using a computer. Arguably, our DNA can be also manipulated in a computer. I don't know that, but it's kind of like the next step to understanding this. I have a very good person that I've interviewed several times who's absolutely brilliant and knows about AI probably better than most, even most scientists, and that's David Adair. You might have heard of him. He has, at a young when he was 17, Colonel, what's his name? This famous colonel knocked on his door and basically brought him into Area 51 because they had captured a UFO that was AI and it wouldn't turn on for them no matter what they did. And somehow they were told that this young man would have the ability. He went underground in Area 51. This is his story. And he laid his hands on it and it turned on. He's been in contact with that AI ever since.
Wow.
There's all kinds of information. I have tons.
Have you ever gone to any of these places? Have you ever gone to Area 51 or gone to see any of this stuff?
I've been on the top. Yeah. So I spoke at what's called Little Ailey Inn, which is right next to Area 51. When we first started Camelot, we spoke.
There's a good Mexican restaurant around the corner. It's a diner. Not far from there.
I met a Pleiadian there that was there visiting with some scientists.
What did the Pleiadian look like?
It was a beautiful, blonde woman, and she was Pleiadian. It was communicated to me non-verbally.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, the Dutch typically look, I think, Pleiadian from what my understanding is, right? Tall, blonde, blue-eyed.
Could have been, a hybrid. I mean, I've been told I'm Pleiadian hybrid. I mean, I'm also other races. I'm related to the lions as well, So we are all, again, hybridized. So you'd have to go back in your trajectory to read your own, sort of travels and what you are now versus what you were when you first came in and all of that.
Wow, fascinating. Kerry, I have to say, you never disappoint. You go and talk about things that nobody else is. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but very, very, very few.
Well, there's starting to be some people talking about similar things. And I know there always were behind the scenes. They weren't necessarily broadcasters, but Yeah, it's exciting to me. So I'm enjoying this time, all right? It's
Sure.
nice not to be the only voice in the wilderness, so to speak. And I've been
Right.
laughed off of news groups. I mean, people. I had a very wealthy guy that I met at a conference quite a long time ago. And at the time, he and a bunch of his colleagues all laughed at me. He said, "If you turn out to be right, I'm going to pay you." And sure enough, he reemerged, I don't know, a week or two ago, and he gave me $5,000 for being right about everything he said.
Oh, isn't that fascinating? Oh, how wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
good for
so it's
you.
kind of fun, it's
Yeah, good for you, Carrie. I mean, I haven't been on the front lines of alien technology or any of that, but I've been on the front lines of a lot of things for a long time. And yep, I've
yeah,
been,
yeah.
laughed at. I've been the butt of many jokes, especially in the mainstream media. They've tried to malign me. They've called me all sorts of names, stuff that I don't even follow. They lump me in these categories. That's fine. I don't really care because guess what? Still here, still here.
Yeah,
And,
no, I have
we're
great
going to keep.
respect for you and your work. So you're an inspiration to all of us as well.
Well, it's not about trying to inspire. It's my desire to figure out what in the actual heck is going on. But more importantly, how can we solve some problems because our country is so divided right now, and it just
Yes,
feels like okay, they're going to throw something else on us to distrakt us. But it's like,
and they
what are they
may
trying to? Are they trying to
actually,
distract us? Or are they trying to enlighten us? What is it? What's going on?
but the latest thing is that ever since Trump made that announcement, you probably saw this. I don't know if I sent it to
Yep.
you. There's some news out there saying that they destroyed millions of UFO files since that time that he made that announcement. So, there's
Oh,
a
I didn't see
huge
that. That doesn't
push.
surprise me.
Yeah, it wouldn't me either. But so this is, we're back to the same kind of trajectory as the Epstein files. What I would say to people is stay on it, demand the truth at every outset. Continue to research. Don't just sit there and wait for somebody to pat you on the head and give you the real truth and nothing but the truth, because it's not going to happen.
Well, there you go. Oh, look, Daily Mail is actually reporting it. What you just said. They're actually reporting it. Here you go. I mean, sometimes the Daily Mail is, it can be a little bit, well, not a little bit, it can be a lot of yellow journalism, but here it is. Mystery is UFO vault with 3.8 million files is wiped clean hours after Trump demands alien docs released. They're
Right.
saying it right, massive probably. And I've seen, if you look it up, you can find numerous articles. I just grabbed the first one. The Black Vault, run by researcher and ufologist John Greenwald Jr., had its main server reportedly wiped clean on February 20th, deleting hundreds of gigabytes worth of files on UFOs, declassified CIA projects, and major conspiracies, including the assassination of JFK. Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well,
Yeah, I
if
guess
they're afraid, they're running for their
bad
lives.
aliens?
It's,
Did the bad
reality.
aliens wipe it, Kerry?
I'm sorry.
Did the bad aliens wipe it?
Yeah, maybe they had help. Maybe an AI did it for them. Who knows? But what I'm saying here is that the truth is out there and it will resurface. It doesn't matter how much they try to erase it, because it's true.
Yeah.
Real truth, it just doesn't go away. You can't unthink it. You can't unremember it. Ultimately, it's changing our planet. That's what matters.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, Kerry, thank you for spending the afternoon with me. I appreciate it. It's been lovely seeing you, and what a download here. But I do want to have you back on and talk about more terrestrial
Okay.
things, because
Yes.
you do understand a lot of this. You write about it, so I think it would be informative.
Thank
Really,
you.
just incredibly fascinating. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Okay. And likewise. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful afternoon. I'm going to let you go, and I'll say goodbye to the audience. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Wow. I knew we were going to go down this rabbit hole. I just didn't realize how deep it was going to go. And, she's challenging me on my faith and on spirituality. And Maureen, who is reading a lot of the books that were never published in the Bible, I'm going to sync up with her like as soon as I can when we hang up here and review this, because Look, the alien stuff, from where I'm sitting, there's nothing I can do about their technology. If clearly they've been around a lot longer than me and they have technology that I don't understand and I'm not privileged to. And frankly, I don't really, it's not that I don't care. It's just I can't affect that right now. And, for those of you that have followed me for a long time, you know what I'm trying to affect. I am literally trying to throw this corporatocracy off of our republic. I want our republic to stand up again. All of our public servant seats that were open are still there. They're waiting for people to step in and serve. What we have going on right now at the state level, the local level, at the federal level is not a republic. We don't have a constitutional republic. We have a corporatocracy that is, talk about hybrids of aliens. We've got public-private partnerships of these, horrific natured companies that are literally trying to extinguish us. We learned this through COVID. And now this recent executive order on glyphosate, it's also highly disturbing. And we have got to start to ask ourselves, how are we going to operate outside of their jurisdiction, outside of their paradigm? Because they're not operating a constitutional republic. They're literally operating a corporation. And it's evident by how they dictate, and everything is done through executive orders. We're not legislating anything. It's a real dogfight right now. And whether you support President Trump or you don't, that's not the point. The point is we are the government, we're the people. And they've been controlling information and they're releasing it. And because we are in such upheaval right now, you have to question, are they releasing this because it's real? Are they releasing this to distract us? Even if it is real, it's a distraction. How do we assimilate this? And I think we have to just square ourselves back to center and back to basics. And we've got to ask ourselves, what exactly do we want to do to pursue life, liberty, and happiness, right? This is what our founding fathers interpreted from our creator. And our creator, God, is mentioned 4 times in all the all of our founding fathers' documents. So why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? And whether or not God is down with aliens or is part of all that, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe some of you do. Kerry seems to say yes. And so I respect her position on this because she's done this for 20 years. But at the end of the day, trying to incorporate that in addition to living our best lives as people, contributing to our families, our communities. What is going on in DC is literally a shit show, and it's a cesspool. I call it the district of corruption. And it's becoming very clear that we really can't affect that and get them to change unless we change what we're doing locally. And my friend, General Flynn, who I know many of you respect out there, he has said it for years since I've known him. Local action has a national impact. And I am going to be turning my turret and everything I'm doing. I'll let you in a little secret. I FOIA'd my HOA that I live in and the county in which we live and the country club that I'm not a member of, but they have seats on our HOA. I FOIA'd documents going back to, I think, 2018. And I was questioning a lot of things that were going on here. And that FOIA followed after I had back and forth with the county about it. All of a sudden, the president of the board resigned, somebody else resigned, and the homeowners, what is it? Not the HOAs, the property management company that represents the HOA and is a go-between, they also resigned. So whatever's in those FOIAs that they have yet to release to me, there was a mass group of resignations. So I know it's a very small little thing, but to someone like myself, it's a big deal because I saw corruption and it really bothered me. And so now that I still haven't gotten the documents, I don't know what we're looking at here, but if all these people decide to quit at the last minute, that's weird, don't you think? Kind of like the Epstein files. They're now getting released and all these people are quitting everywhere. Some are even getting arrested, like over in the UK. We still don't have any arrests here, but hey, again, I'm going to not complain about it anymore because frankly, at this point, what does it matter? I've got to focus on what's happening right here and protect what's going on in my world, as should you. So anyhow, you guys, I hope you have a good day. Thanks for tuning into this interesting conversation I had with Kerry Cassidy. I know it's completely unusual and off sort of the beaten path from what I'm focused on, but President Trump put it out there. So let's talk about it. What is going to be exposed? Well, Kerry Cassidy's 20-year veteran in this space, and she knows. So I'm glad that she took the time to sit down and talk with us. And there's so much more to unpack. You should definitely check out her website, which is right over here. Let's get you guys over. Oh, that's her Substack. She's got a good Substack too, but you should definitely check out her website. This is her site. Yeah, Kerry Cassidy. You can check out what she's doing. She's got Project Camelot. Check it out. She's got a lot of information on there. And like I said, she's a documentarian. She's been doing this for 20 years. She's got a Facebook page, a Telegram channel. She's very, very, very connected on social media. And she knows a lot of people. And she's done really incredible whistleblower interviews over the years. She's very, very, very respected in this space. So if this is a space that's of interest to you, by all means, check it out. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. Want to just share this with you because, you know, this is kind of the theme that we're in right now. This is the, remember this? Wait, what is that sound? Oh, the truth is out there. You guys have a great afternoon. Have a great evening. And remember, next week, if you're in Texas, you have primaries. Vote for Doc Pete Chambers. Vote for Paul Bongard. You know, this is your state, Texas. You got to get out there. You got to get out there. And don't forget to vote for Ryan Zink. He's a J6er. He's up in the Panhandle. Paul Bongard is just east of Dallas, between down East Texas. And of course, Dr. Pete Chambers is running for governor. Tomorrow, President Trump shows up in Dallas to stump for Greg Abbott, who's on the ropes. He knows he's getting blown away by Dr. Pete Chambers. The enthusiasm is real. So get on the stick, folks. If you're in Texas, go out and vote for Dr. Pete Chambers, for Paul Bongard, and for Ryan Zink. You guys have a great afternoon. Hi, I'm Ann Vandersteel. I want to talk to you a little bit about your health. Part of my daily routine is to get up in the morning and get a little exercise on. If I have time for a mile or 7, doesn't matter. I get out the door every single day. It's important to get my body moving and get that oxygen flowing through my brains. What is also equally important is what I put in my body after I exercise. I rely on vandersteelhealth.com, where I have a delicious selection of superfoods and other supplements. But first and foremost for me are my superfoods. I have a delicious shake every single day. It is organic, all made in the United States of America, non-GMO, never processed before, dehydrated superfoods. And when they reconstitute with water, milk, or whatever juice you like, it makes a delicious, healthy, plant-based protein supplement. And I say supplement because, frankly, I use this as a meal replacement. This is what's helped me lose the last 20 pounds of COVID. I'm back down to my fighting college weight, fitting in my college clothes, and feeling better than ever. So go to vandersteelhealth.com and get your delicious superfoods. Get on the transformation program with us. It's a 30-day kickoff, and it will get your day starting out great. And watch the weight just fall off. Watch the energy increase, the brain fog lift, and of course the ancillary benefits in your hair, skin, and nails. All these things, you are what you eat. Remember that. Go to vandersteelhealth.com.